The eviction notice shook in her hands. 30 days until the street, 30 days until her daughter's world collapsed. But when a mysterious job offer arrived minutes later, Sophia couldn't tell if it was salvation or a trap. She had nothing left to lose, which made her dangerous. But the man waiting in the penthouse didn't just want to hire Sophia Chen. He wanted to own her. Sophia Chen stood in the middle of her tiny downtown apartment, the faded carpet under her bare feet rough against her skin, her pulse hammering in her ears. The paper trembled so hard she could barely read it, but she didn't need to. She knew every word. 30 days to vacate. The landlord's signature at the bottom felt like a death sentence. Across the room, the coffee table was buried in unpaid medical bills and past due notices, the red lettering screaming at her. Emma's surgery had saved her life, but it had cost them everything. Sophia's savings were gone, her credit cards were maxed, her freelance design jobs, the few that still came in, barely covered groceries and bus fare. "Mommy?" The small voice made her spin around. Emma stood in the doorway, clutching her threadbare teddy bear, her big dark eyes wide. "Are you crying?" Sophia forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "No, sweetheart, Mommy just has something in her eye." Emma didn't look convinced, but she nodded and padded back toward the small bedroom they shared. "Will you read me a story?" "In a minute," Sophia promised. When Emma disappeared, Sophia sank onto the sagging couch, burying her face in her hands. How was she supposed to fix this? How was she supposed to keep her little girl safe when the world seemed determined to take everything from them? Her phone buzzed. Another job alert, probably spam. She almost ignored it, but desperation made her check. The listing was brief, almost cryptic. Personal assistant to H. IGA profile executive. Immediate start. Exceptional compensation for the right candidate. Discretion required. Sophia frowned. No company name. No job description beyond those few words. But her heart jumped when she saw the salary, more money than she had ever imagined making. Enough to pay off every bill, keep a roof over their heads, maybe even start a savings account for Emma's future. It was probably a scam. It had to be, but she couldn't stop reading it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she started typing, crafting a careful response. She wrote about her organizational skills, her ability to manage confidential projects, her reliability. Her finger hesitated over the send button, then pressed. Minutes later, her phone rang. "Miss Chen." The voice on the other end was deep, crisp, commanding, the kind of voice that made people stand straighter without thinking. "My name is James. I represent a client who may be interested in your services. Are you available for an interview tomorrow morning?" Sophia gripped the phone tighter. "Yes, of course. Could you tell me more about the position?" "Details will be discussed during the interview. Meridian Tower, penthouse level, 9 a.m. sharp. Come alone and bring identification." The line went dead. Sophia sat frozen, staring at her phone. Meridian Tower was one of the most exclusive addresses in the city, home to tech moguls, foreign investors, billionaires. This was no scam. Her stomach twisted with both fear and hope. The next morning, she stood at the foot of the glittering skyscraper, wearing her one good suit and clutching a worn leather portfolio. The glass facade mirrored the city behind her, the reflection of a young woman who looked far more confident than she felt. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble and brushed steel. The security guard barely glanced at her before waving her toward the private elevator that would take her to the penthouse. The ride was silent, too smooth, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored doors. When the elevator stopped, she stepped into a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire skyline, and the air smelled faintly of leather and money. A man approached. Tall, silver hair, tailored suit. "Miss Chen, I'm James. Follow me." He led her down a hallway lined with original artwork, the soft carpet swallowing the sound of their steps. At the end of the corridor stood a set of double doors made of dark, polished wood. James knocked once. "Enter." The word came from the other side, a single, calm command. James opened the door and gestured for her to go in. Sophia stepped into the room, her breath catching as her eyes landed on the man behind the massive desk. He didn't look up at first, his attention fixed on the screen in front of him. When he finally did, she felt it, the weight of his gaze, sharp and assessing, as if he could see every secret she'd ever tried to hide. Nathan Cross looked like a man who had never once been denied anything in his life, and now his ice-blue eyes were fixed on her. Sophia's breath caught, but she forced herself to step farther into the office, the click of her heels sounding unnaturally loud against the polished floor. The room was massive, the kind of space that swallowed you whole, steel and glass and leather, A panoramic view of the city spread like a glittering map behind the man who owned it. Nathan Cross stood as if he had all the time in the world, his movements deliberate, predatory. Up close, he was even more arresting. Tall, perfectly put together, an air of coiled power about him. His eyes, cold and impossibly blue, locked on her face like a spotlight. "You're late," he said, even though she knew she wasn't. Sophia swallowed hard. "The elevator. Doesn't matter. Sit." The single word had more weight than any sentence she'd heard all week. She sat, clutching her portfolio as if it were a shield. Nathan returned to his chair but didn't look away from her. "Sophia Chen," he began, his voice smooth but carrying a steel edge. 26 years old, freelance graphic designer, single mother to a 5-year-old daughter, Emma. Eviction notice served 3 days ago. Credit card debt totaling $19,742. Past due medical bills, $36,000. Her mouth went dry. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know everything about the people I consider employing." Sophia's heart thudded painfully. This wasn't an interview. It was a cross-examination. Nathan leaned back, steepling his fingers. "The position you applied for is not a typical assistant role. If I hire you, you'll have complete access to my home, my schedule, and my most private dealings. My competitors would pay millions for that access, which means I cannot afford mistakes." Sophia forced herself to nod, even as her instincts screamed at her to run. "The salary," Nathan continued, "is $50,000 per month, plus benefits, plus a furnished apartment in one of my properties." The number hit her like a physical blow. She imagined Emma's smile, her tiny hand in hers as they walked into a safe, clean home. She imagined the hospital calling to tell her the bills were paid. Then Nathan's gaze sharpened, cutting through her daydream. "But there are conditions. First, you will sign an extensive non-disclosure agreement. If you violate it, I will ensure you lose everything, financially and legally. Second, you will be available to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no 9 to 5 in my world." Sophia's pulse spiked. "I have a daughter. I can't just abandon her." "I'm not asking you to." His tone was flat, but there was a flash of something softer in his eyes. "She would move with you. Full-time childcare will be provided. There are excellent schools near my estate. Her needs will be taken care of. Perhaps better than you can take care of them now." Sophia's fingers dug into the edge of her chair. "And the third condition?" Nathan's lips curved, not quite a smile, more like a test. "Security. I've had 3 assassination attempts in the last 5 years. People would do anything to get close to me, Miss Chen. Before anyone works in my home, they undergo a full background check and a full physical examination." She blinked, confused. "Like a regular checkup?" His gaze didn't waver. "More comprehensive. You will be searched for electronic devices, wires, hidden recorders. We will confirm your identity, your health, your loyalty." The word landed like a stone in her stomach. "Searched? You mean strip searches?" "I mean security protocols that have kept me alive. If you find them invasive, you are free to leave now." The air in the room grew heavy. Sophia's hands trembled in her lap. She could hear Emma's voice in her mind. "Mommy, I don't want to move again. Please." The word left her lips before she could stop it. "Please don't make me." Nathan leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk, his voice low and precise. "This is not a negotiation, Miss Chen. Either you trust me enough to work for me, completely, or you walk out that door." Sophia's throat tightened. Walking away meant eviction, poverty, watching Emma lose everything. She heard herself whisper, "When do I start?" Nathan's expression didn't change, but there was the faintest flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. Immediately, he said, "James will take you to the facility for your screening. When you pass, you will be moved into your new residence tonight. And Miss Chen..." She looked up. "Once you step into my world," Nathan said quietly, "you don't get to step back out." The double doors behind her opened with a soft hiss. James stood waiting. Sophia rose on unsteady legs, her heart hammering. She had no idea whether she had just saved her daughter's future or signed away her soul. The car ride to the facility felt like a funeral procession. Sophia sat in the back of the black sedan, the city blurring past the tinted windows, her hands gripping the hem of her skirt so tightly her knuckles went white. James sat beside her in silence, his expression unreadable, as if he were escorting her to a courtroom rather than a medical screening. By the time they arrived, Sophia's heart was pounding so hard it made her feel nauseous. The facility was tucked away in a quiet part of town, discreet and windowless, the kind of place people passed every day without ever wondering what went on inside. Inside, the halls were white and clinical, the lighting too bright, humming faintly like it was judging her. A woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm, no-nonsense manner greeted her. "Miss Chen," she said warmly, though her professionalism was unyielding. "I'm Dr. Helena Martinez. I'll be conducting your examination today. Please follow me." Sophia's legs felt heavy, as though every step carried her deeper into something she couldn't escape. The examination room was sterile, too quiet, the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air. On the counter sat a folded hospital gown and a clipboard full of forms. "I need you to remove all clothing and jewelry," Dr. Martinez said gently. "I'll step outside while you change. Knock when you're ready." The door clicked shut, and Sophia's hands shook as she reached for the zipper of her skirt. It felt like more than just clothes she was taking off. It felt like she was stripping away the last shreds of the old life she had left. By the time she was standing in the thin gown, barefoot and vulnerable, she could barely breathe. When Dr. Martinez returned, she was professional and careful, explaining each step, but it didn't stop Sophia from feeling exposed. The scanner passed slowly over her body, beeping as it detected metal from the small clasp in her hair, which had to be removed. The next 20 minutes were the longest of her life. Every check, every scan, every question felt like a reminder that Nathan Cross now had the power to know everything about her, down to her heartbeat. "You're clear," Dr. Martinez said at last, jotting notes onto the clipboard. "You can get dressed. James will take you to your new residence." Relief flooded Sophia, but it was hollow. She felt wrung out, like she had been taken apart piece by piece and then put back together. By the time the car drove them through the gates of Nathan's estate, dusk had settled over the city. The mansion rose before them, all glass and steel in sharp lines, the fading sun, light catching on its windows like fire. It was beautiful, but in the way a predator is beautiful, sleek, dangerous, impossible to look away from. James escorted her to the East Wing, where a fully furnished apartment waited. Emma's giggle rang out from one of the rooms, and Sophia's chest ached with relief. Her daughter ran to her, her little arms wrapping tight around her waist. "Mommy, look at my new room," Emma said breathlessly, tugging her toward a bedroom filled with toys and books that must have cost thousands. "And Miss Patricia says there's a swimming pool. Can we go see it tomorrow?" Sophia knelt and hugged her tighter. "Yes, baby, we can see it tomorrow." But even as she smiled, something inside her twisted. She couldn't shake the feeling that every toy, every luxury, was part of a price she hadn't even begun to understand. At 7 o'clock sharp, James appeared at the door. "Mr. Cross is expecting you for dinner." The dining room in the main house was a cathedral of glass and dark wood. A long table stretched nearly the length of the room, set with silver and crystal that gleamed under the soft lights. Nathan sat at the head of the table, no longer in a suit but in dark slacks and an open-collared white shirt. The casual attire somehow made him look even more dangerous, a predator at ease. "Emma," he said, standing when they entered. His voice was softer than it had been in the office but still carried authority. "I'm Nathan. Welcome to my home." Emma, never shy, grinned. "Your house is really big. Do you live here all by yourself?" "Most of the time," Nathan said, and Sophia thought she saw something flicker across his face. Loneliness, quickly hidden, but not anymore. Dinner passed in surreal quiet. Nathan was unexpectedly patient with Emma, answering her rapid-fire questions about the house, the pool, and the strange piece of modern art near the stairs. Sophia found herself watching him more than she wanted to, unsettled by how natural he seemed with her daughter. After Emma had been taken back to the apartment by Patricia, Nathan gestured for Sophia to follow him into a side room, his study. This room was darker, more intimate, lined with bookshelves and lit by the glow of a fire. "Your daughter is charming," Nathan said, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He offered one to Sophia, but she shook her head. "She's adapting well," she said carefully, her voice low. "Children are resilient." Nathan's gaze lingered on her, sharp as a scalpel. "You passed your screening. That's good. Tomorrow, your real work begins." Sophia nodded, feeling her throat tighten. Nathan took a step closer, his presence filling the room, his voice low and precise. "Understand something, Sophia. I don't make mistakes when I choose who to trust. You're here because I decided you were worth the risk. Do not make me regret that decision." Her pulse kicked hard. "I won't." Nathan studied her for a long moment, then turned away, dismissing her as if the conversation had never happened. As Sophia made her way back to the apartment, her legs felt like lead. Emma was already asleep, her small body curled under the blankets of her new bed. Sophia brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face and sat down on the edge of the mattress, staring at the moonlight spilling across the floor. She had stepped into Nathan Cross's world, and every instinct told her that she was no longer free to leave it. 6 weeks later, Sophia no longer felt like a guest in Nathan Cross's house. She felt like an extension of it, another precision-engineered piece in the machine that we know as his life. Her mornings began before dawn, her phone buzzing with James's messages outlining the day's schedule, back-to-back meetings, calls with foreign investors, quiet instructions to prepare documents Nathan hadn't told anyone else about. She had learned that working for Nathan meant being 3 steps ahead at all times. It meant silence when silence was required, answers when answers were demanded, and absolute composure no matter what storm raged outside the glass walls of Cross Technologies. And there were storms. It started with whispers in the boardroom, a contract that had been leaked, competitors underbidding deals that were supposed to be secret. Then came the email breach. Sophia had been the one to discover it, early one morning while reviewing Nathan's calendar. A single line of code, hidden deep in a file, feeding confidential data to an unknown source. When she told Nathan, his expression had darkened, and for the first time, she saw him lose his legendary calm. "Shut it down," he'd ordered James. "Trace it. I want to know who's inside my house." Inside my house. The words stayed with her, chilling. That night, dinner was quieter than usual. Emma chattered about school and the friends she'd made, but Nathan barely touched his food. When Sophia excused Emma early, Nathan spoke for the first time. Who else had access to that file? Sophia froze. "I'm not sure. It will know. I didn't ask it." His blue eyes pinned her where she sat. "I asked you." Her stomach dropped. "I didn't touch anything except the calendar. I swear." For a long moment, Nathan said nothing. Then he leaned back, studying her as if he could read the truth in the beat of her pulse. "I believe you," he said finally, but the air between them stayed charged, brittle as glass. The next day, James informed her that Nathan had instructed security to tighten all protocols. Every visitor was screened twice, every delivery searched. Even Sophia felt the shift. The house, once merely intimidating, now felt like a fortress under siege. And yet in the middle of this tension, something between her and Nathan began to change. It was subtle at first, the way he lingered after meetings to ask her opinion on business strategies, how his hand brushed against hers when passing her a document and didn't pull away immediately. Sometimes she would catch him watching Emma in the garden with a strange look, something dangerously close to longing. One night, after a particularly brutal day that ended with Nathan firing 2 executives for suspected leaks, Sophia found herself standing in the study doorway while he sat in the dark, the glow of the fireplace outlining his sharp profile. "You should eat something," she said quietly. Nathan looked up at her, and for a moment, she saw something she never expected. Exhaustion. Not weakness exactly, but the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from carrying too much for too long. "I'll eat later," he said. Sophia hesitated. "You can't fight everything alone, Nathan." His jaw tightened. "That's exactly what I've been doing my entire life." For a beat, neither of them moved. The fire popped softly, and Sophia realized her pulse was hammering, not from fear this time, but from something she didn't want to name. She turned to leave before she could say something she couldn't take back. And that's when she saw it. A folder had slipped from Nathan's desk, its tab catching on the edge of a drawer. Her own name was written on the label in sharp, precise letters. Sophia froze, her breath catching. Inside the folder was a dossier, her entire life laid out in photographs, receipts, transcripts, copies of Emma's medical records, surveillance photos taken outside their old apartment, even transcripts of phone calls she had made to friends before she ever applied for the job. Her heart pounded. Nathan hadn't just investigated her after she applied. He had been watching her for weeks, maybe months. "Looking for something?" The voice came from the doorway behind her, calm but edged with steel. Sophia spun around, the folder clutched against her chest. Nathan stood there, shadows cutting across his face, his eyes unreadable. "You were watching me before I even knew you existed," she said, her voice shaking. Nathan stepped inside, closing the study door with a soft click that sounded louder than a gunshot in the quiet room. "I was preparing," he said simply. "This isn't preparation," Sophia shot back, her fear giving way to anger. "This is surveillance. You knew about my daughter's surgery, my debts. You even knew I'd be desperate enough to take this job." Nathan crossed the room slowly, each step measured, deliberate. "Yes, he said, his voice low. Because I needed to know if you were strong enough to survive in my world. Sophia backed up until she hit the edge of his desk, her heart pounding. You didn't give me a choice. I gave you the only choice you had left, Nathan said, and for the first time since she'd met him, his perfect composure cracked. There was something raw in his expression, something she couldn't read. Before she could speak again, Nathan took another step closer, so close she could feel the heat of him, smell the faint spice of his cologne. You think I go to these lengths for just anyone? He asked, his voice low, almost dangerous. Sophia's breath caught. Then why me? Nathan's jaw worked, his eyes locked on hers, and for one suspended moment, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Then he said it. Because from the moment I saw you, he said, voice rough, I couldn't stop thinking about you. Sophia's pulse thundered. She opened her mouth, and before she could speak, Nathan closed the space between them and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't patient. It was a collision of months of tension, a kiss that stole her breath and shattered every wall she'd built. When he pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. This changes everything, Sophia whispered. No, Nathan said, his hand still cupping her jaw. Everything was already changing. The study door banged open. Sophia spun around as a woman with platinum hair and a designer coat strode in, followed by a flustered James. Nathan, she said with a sharp smile, I think we need to talk about your little assistant. Sophia's stomach dropped. Whoever this woman was, she had come armed with trouble, and she'd walked in just in time to see everything. Olivia Reed didn't just enter the study, she claimed it. The sharp click of her heels on the hardwood floor echoed like gunshots, her platinum hair gleaming in the firelight. She took in the sight of Sophia standing too close to Nathan, her lips still tingling from his kiss, and her cruel smile widened. Well, Olivia drawled, dropping her handbag onto a chair as if she owned the place. Now I see why you've been so distracted, Nathan, playing house with the help. Sophia's face flushed hot, shame and anger crashing through her all at once. Nathan stepped forward, his voice sharp. You weren't invited, Olivia. No, she said lightly, but when one of your board members tips me off that your perfect little assistant has been snooping through confidential files, I figured you might want to see the evidence. Sophia's heart lurched. That's a lie. Olivia ignored her, pulling out her phone and swiping to a gallery of photos. She held it out, her perfectly manicured finger tapping the screen. There she was, Sophia, captured in grainy black and white stills from a hidden camera, at Nathan's desk, at night, flipping through files, holding her phone as though photographing pages. That's not what it looks like, Sophia said, her voice shaking. Nathan's gaze was glacial, unreadable. Then tell me what it is. I knocked over the files by accident, Sophia said quickly. I was putting them back. I didn't photograph anything. I was trying to figure out why Olivia's name kept coming up in contracts that didn't make sense. I thought she might be trying to sabotage you. Olivia laughed, a rich mocking sound. Oh, she's clever, turning this back on me. Nathan's jaw tightened, the muscle there working like a ticking clock. Sophia could feel him retreating behind his walls, shutting her out, his blue eyes colder with each passing second. This isn't over, Olivia said, turning toward the door. You have 24 hours to decide, Nathan. Either reinstate my shares and give me back my 50% of Cross Technologies, or I release what I have to the press and the feds. Your choice. She paused, her smirk razor sharp. And maybe ask your little assistant why Detective Ryan Walsh was at her apartment last week. The FBI seems very interested in your business dealings. Then she was gone, the door closing behind her like the slam of a cell door. Silence stretched out between them, thick and suffocating. You didn't tell me the FBI had contacted you, Nathan said finally, his voice low and dangerous. Sophia's throat closed. I was going to. When? Nathan snapped. After they used you to bring me down? Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. I didn't tell them anything. I swear it, Nathan. He asked questions and I said nothing. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, afraid you'd think I was working with them. Nathan turned away, his hands braced on the edge of the desk, his shoulders rigid. Through the window, the garden stretched in darkness, faint lights glinting off the pool. Emma was out there somewhere, laughing with Patricia. Sophia could hear her voice faintly, distant but clear. Nathan's next words were quiet but cut deeper than any shout. Maybe you should cooperate with them. Take Emma. Leave. I can arrange new identities, financial support. You could start over somewhere safe. Sophia's breath caught like she'd been struck. You want me to leave? I want you to be safe. Nathan finally turned, and for a moment she saw something raw in his face. Fear, real fear, before it was gone. Olivia is right about one thing. Some of my business practices are complicated. The FBI is circling. If they're talking to you, you and Emma are already targets. Sophia took a step toward him, her anger sparking through her fear. And what about you? You think I'm just going to run away and leave you to face this alone? This is not your fight. It became my fight the day you dragged me into your world, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. You made me sign your contracts. You made me give up my life. You made me trust you. And now when it matters most, you want to push me away? Nathan's gaze locked on hers, cold and burning all at once. If you stay, he said softly, there is no going back, no safety net, no escape route. If Olivia brings the FBI down on me, you will go down with me. You understand that? Sophia's heart pounded so hard it felt like her ribs might break. She thought of Emma asleep in her bed just beyond these walls. She thought of the little girl's laugh, the way she had started calling Nathan's mansion home. She thought of everything she'd risked already. And then she stepped closer until she was standing right in front of him, close enough to feel the heat of his body, close enough that she could see the crack in his icy mask. My life stopped being simple the day I walked into your office, she whispered. If I have to go down, I'd rather go down standing next to you than running away. Nathan's jaw tightened, and for a long moment he just stared at her. Then slowly he reached up and caught her wrist, his grip firm, grounding her. You have no idea what you're agreeing to, he said. Then show me, Sophia said, her voice steady. Nathan's expression shifted, something dark and resolute settling in. He pulled her closer until she was standing between his knees, his hands on her waist. Then we fight, he said, and there was no mistaking the vow in his voice. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills, and Sophia knew with bone-deep certainty that whatever storm was coming, she was now part of it. The storm broke 2 nights later. Sophia woke to the sound of pounding at the front gates, a dozen vehicles pulling up the long drive. Flashing red and blue lights cut across the night sky, painting the glass walls of Nathan's mansion in police colors. She grabbed her robe and ran to the window just as Emma stirred in the next room, frightened by the noise. Downstairs, the front doors crashed open. Federal agents poured inside like a flood, dark jackets with yellow lettering, their voices barking orders. Federal Bureau of Investigation, everyone stay where you are. Sophia's pulse skyrocketed. Patricia appeared in the hallway, scooping Emma into her arms. Stay here, Sophia told her, voice shaking but firm. Lock the door and don't come out until I say. She ran down the grand staircase barefoot, her heart hammering. Nathan was already in the foyer, barefoot himself, shirt sleeves rolled up, his expression carved from stone. Mr. Cross, the lead agent said, holding up a warrant. We have reason to believe Cross Technologies is in violation of multiple federal statutes. We're seizing servers, financial records, and communications. Nathan didn't resist. He simply nodded, his voice like steel. James, get the legal team here, now. Sophia stood frozen, watching agents move like ants through the house, pulling hard drives, seizing files. She wanted to scream that this was Olivia's doing, that this was a setup, but panic made her throat close. When the storm finally passed, the house felt violated. Straws. Peed bare. Nathan stood in the center of the foyer, the warrant still in his hand, the veins in his temples standing out. She did this, Sophia said, stepping closer. Olivia wanted this exact reaction, to make you look guilty before the world. She may have just succeeded, Nathan said grimly. Tomorrow the press will run with this raid. My stock will plummet. My board will turn. I'll be forced to step down. Then let's fight, Sophia said, her voice rising. Nathan turned on her, his eyes blazing. With what, Sophia? She has evidence. The FBI has evidence. Then I'll get proof she planted it, Sophia said fiercely. I'll go to her. I'll make her admit it. No, Nathan said sharply. You're not going near her. But it was too late. Sophia had already made up her mind. The next evening, she stood outside Olivia Reed's penthouse, her hands trembling but her spine straight. Olivia opened the door with a slow, mocking smile. Well, well, she said, leaning on the frame, if it isn't the loyal little assistant. Here to beg? No, Sophia said, stepping inside. I'm here to end this. Olivia laughed, a low, rich sound. You think you can end me? You don't have the power, sweetheart. Nathan built an empire. I know where all the bodies are buried. I can burn it to the ground. Sophia's pulse pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. Then do it. But we both know you want more than destruction. You want control. Olivia's smile sharpened. You think you know what I want? I know you planted evidence to make Nathan look guilty. I know you leaked contracts to sabotage deals, and I know you hired a PI to follow me just to get those photos that made me look like a spy. Olivia's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, and Sophia caught it. Thank you, Sophia said softly, pulling her phone from her pocket. The screen glowed with the recording app. Olivia's eyes widened. You got what I needed, Sophia said, backing toward the door. Olivia's face twisted in fury. You think that recording will save him? The FBI doesn't care about petty drama. They want him. Then I'll give them you first, Sophia said, and slammed the door behind her. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed, every seat filled with reporters, analysts, board members, and curious onlookers. Sophia sat in the front row, Emma's small hand in hers, as the judge read the verdict. Olivia Reed is found guilty on 12 counts of corporate espionage, fraud, and attempted extortion. The room erupted in flashes from cameras, the click, click, click deafening. Sophia exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Nathan sat at the defense table, calm but coiled, and when his name was finally cleared, he turned to look at Sophia. Their eyes locked, and something inside her chest finally broke open. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed, shouting questions, cameras flashing. Nathan ignored them all, striding to where Sophia stood waiting. You saved me, he said, his voice rough, raw. No, she said softly. We saved each other. For the first time since she had met him, Nathan smiled, a real, unguarded smile, and it felt like sunrise. That night, in the quiet of their new house, smaller, simpler, chosen together, Sophia found him on the patio, staring at the stars. Any regrets? He asked, his arm around her waist when she sat beside him. About which part? She teased. Working for you? Falling in love with you? Surviving the worst year of my life? All of it, he said, and for once there was no command in his voice, only quiet vulnerability. Sophia turned to face him. The only thing I regret is that it took us this long to trust each other completely. Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. This isn't the most romantic setting, he said, dropping to one knee beside her chair, and God knows our beginning wasn't simple. But Sophia Chen, will you marry me? Not because you need me, not because I can give you safety or money, but because you love me. Sophia's throat closed, tears spilling over. Yes, she whispered. Emma burst out onto the patio, followed by Patricia, and froze. Mommy, are you crying? Happy tears, Sophia said, pulling her daughter close. Nathan asked me to marry him. Emma's face lit up. Does that mean he's my daddy now? Nathan knelt down so he was eye level with her. If you want me to be. Emma threw her arms around his neck. I want that very much. The three of them stayed there as the stars came out, the night quiet except for Emma's giggles and Nathan's soft laugh. Sophia leaned against him, thinking of the girl she had been the night she first held that eviction notice. Desperate, afraid, begging a stranger not to take away her dignity. Now she was here, stronger, freer, loved, and for the first time she realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Complicated was exactly where she wanted to be.